Welcome to the H.E.A.L, Help, Elevate, and Learn podcast. This podcast is a guide to healing your inner child and maturing your inner adult. This is the place where we slow down, look within, and begin the journey of restoring what was lost, silenced, or forgotten. Here, we believe that healing the inner child is not about reliving the past, it's about rewriting your future. Together, we'll uncover the wisdom, the strength, and the love you've always carried inside. So take a deep breath. You're safe, you're seen, and you're right where you need to be. Hello, everybody. How you doing today? This is Sakoni Prince of SakoniPrince.com, where we make motivation personal, introducing you to yourself. And I want to welcome you to the H.E.A.L podcast. H.E.A.L is an acronym for Help, Elevate, and Learn, and it's based on my latest book with the same title, but the subtitle is It's a Guide to Healing Your Inner Child. And I can't tell you how excited I am to actually welcome you into this podcast, because I know today our guest is going to share something that is going to be life-changing and monumental. But with that being said, we also want to thank our sponsor of this podcast, none other than BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose SakoniPrinceHeal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. And again, we want to thank BetterHelp for being a sponsor of this episode, and I can't wait until we get a chance to actually see and hear from our guests. And speaking of which, it's going to bring up now, we have none other than Michelle Speaks with the Z. Michelle, introduce yourself.
Hello, hello, hello. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Sakoni. I am honored to share this platform with you. And so I say greetings and good evening to your guests and those listening in. I am Michelle Portier, aka Michelle Speaks with a Z. If you hide it, you can't heal it. I am a mother, a grandmother. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Michelle Speaks. I'm a Navy veteran. I did 13 years in the military in the intelligence field. I was a code breaker. In layman's terms, I helped the military keep its secrets a secret. And I could tell you some more, but then I'd have to take you out, and I don't want to do that. So
No, but we definitely don't need to hear any of that.
right.
I do want to say thank you for your service, and we appreciate your sacrifice.
My honor, my honor. And I continue to serve,
Yeah.
I've always loved serving, the community. I have a servant's heart. And when I joined the military, I felt that what better way could I serve than to serve my country? And so, but it was twofold. I was trying to get out of a dysfunctional upbringing as well. So it was twofold. But even in that, I've always had a servant's heart. And so a little bit about me, a fun fact, I love nature.
Okay.
I love doing things that people think I can't do. So I've climbed the Andes Mountain in 2013 at 18,000 plus feet, and I'm afraid of heights and didn't have any former mountaineering experience, but I just believe in confronting my fears. So I love life. I love people. I love working out. I love, just empowering people to move beyond what they think they can't move beyond. So that's me in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. Well, let's give you an opportunity to serve some people on this podcast.
Okay, let's go.
So let's jump into our first question for this season. It says, what does maturing your inner adult mean to you, and how has that showed up in your personal journey?
That's a loaded question, but I'm gonna make it as streamlined as possible. So for me, maturing my inner adult meant that I stopped allowing the wounded parts of myself to navigate and negotiate my life.
Mm,
What do I mean by that? I stopped looking at life through the skewed lens of the pain and the betrayal and the things that I had encountered, not only in the military, but in my upbringing.
mm,
Um, you know, doing what I did in the military, I often tell people that I was trained for that growing up because of some of the things that I encountered growing up.
mm,
My trauma started at an early age, at the age of 6, and
right.
went on through my teenage years and into my military service. And so it was just a lot of things that caused me to be very guarded. I was always on high alert. That vigilant fight, flight, freeze, or fight.
Right.
So when you've lived through incest and sexual assault, military sexual trauma, domestic violence, homelessness, all of that, then your system goes into protective mode. You're on high alert. You learn to scan the room. You sit with your
Yeah.
back to the wall so you can see everything.
Right.
You learn to read people's tones, what they're saying and what they're
Yeah.
not saying.
Yeah.
You learn to sense things that other people don't sense, and you learn to anticipate danger. So that's how I lived my life growing up. I learned how to survive. And the shift came maturing my inner adult when I learned that I wanted to do more than just survive. I didn't want to be a chameleon anymore. I didn't want to
Mm,
shrink
right.
myself to be invisible. I wanted to regain that vivacious, happy-go-lucky little girl that I was before life took a turn. And so when I made the decision that I just don't want to die,
Mm,
you know, because I have, I've shared this before. I have 5 failed suicide attempts, 5 mental health diagnoses. But when
mm,
I climbed that mountain, those in back in 2013, that was my paradigm shift. That was when I realized, Lord, I really don't want to die. I just don't want to
wow.
carry this anymore, and I don't want to
Right.
wear the mask anymore. So I would say that was my paradigm shift, and I learned that there is life after trauma. There is life after this, and I want to live life to its fullest.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's amazing. And I salute your bravery. I salute your willingness to be transparent.
mhm.
Because a lot of people, they go through life and they tend to try to hide their scars and their cracks. But I tell people all the time that those are the things that people relate to.
Right.
Those are the things that really make you human and make you, fallible, make you touchable, as opposed to those people who try to make you think that they never have any issues, never have any problems. Right?
Hmm.
But the reality is we all struggle on some level, but to have the tenacity, to get back up and to keep going is what a lot of people are looking for.
Those are the kind of people that I kind of look at kind of side eye. Those that are always happy, always on, always, nothing is ever wrong. We're living in this land where there's just peaches and cream and roses. No.
Right.
What's underneath the surface? What are you hiding? Because,
Right.
if you hide it, you can't heal it.
That's
And,
true.
life, I feel like in this world, we all want three things. We want to love, we want to be seen, we want to be heard. And because of some of the things we've encountered, we learn to isolate, but we were created for community. We were created
Mm,
for connection and to commune. And when we've encountered stuff, we become disconnected, and we have to learn, find our way back to being reconnected. First, I'm a woman of faith with our Creator, then with ourselves, and then by default with our friends, family, and loved ones that we've been
right.
isolated from. We have to
Mm,
learn how to be soft again because I learned how to be hard. I was trained to be hard. Even growing up, my grandmother often used to say, put on your big girl panties, suck it up, and keep it moving. So I
right.
learned to do that, but I
Right.
didn't know how to be soft without feeling like I was being taken
Vulnerable.
advantage of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, my inner adult began maturing when I realized just because we can endure something doesn't mean that we were called to.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, do me a favor, say that again because somebody needs to hear that.
Just because you can endure something does not mean that you were called to do it.
Yeah, that is so, so true.
Yeah.
That was worth the price of admission right there.
Right.
For sure, for
Just
sure.
because we can doesn't mean we have to or we should.
Right, right,
That's
right.
survival.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. All right, so our second question says many of us carry unhealed parts of our childhood.
Hmm.
What are some signs that your inner child is still in control of your decision making today?
Hmm. When your yes isn't a yes, when it's a fear response because you are
Mm,
people pleasing, because you
yeah,
don't want to disappoint someone, because you don't want to lose someone. If you're
right.
constantly in spaces where you're always over explaining yourself or you're afraid of silence,
Yeah,
trying to prove that you're not too much, trying to prove that through performance that you're safe or that you're valuable. Um, yeah,
mm,
that's a sign that there's something that's not healed. Trying to be chosen, you know,
hmm,
yeah.
yeah.
Avoiding conflict because I did that a lot. Over giving to keep the connection.
Wow,
Staying
wow.
too long in a space that you should have left because you don't want to cause anybody else to feel betrayed or abandoned like you did. Now, I was the master at that.
Ooh. Well, I think we could probably teach a class on that, me and you, because I fell into that category as well.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Tol-
go ahead, go ahead.
Tell me about, well, tolerating disrespect because I don't want to lose someone.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, these are some things that have to be identified in us,
Hmm.
but it takes us really stepping back and start. I love what one of my guests, and her name was Michelle as well. In fact, Michelle Gillian Moore said, you know, she said, "We need to become curious about
Hmm.
ourselves, asking
Hmm.
questions as to why we do what we do." And I've shared this several times. My journey of personal development and self discovery started when I was in college in Atlanta, and I was in a relationship, and the relationship went south.
ATL.
Yeah, ATL. Yeah, I was in a relationship, and the relationship went south, and I started asking myself questions. I didn't spend a whole lot of time blaming her and in fact, what happened in a relationship. I started saying, Sakona, why are you the way that you are? I
Right.
got curious about my behavior and how I
Right.
started to see a pattern of behavior,
Hmm.
in fact, that really allowed me an opportunity to look for root causes and then
Exactly.
to understand why I was doing what I was doing so I could then again make adjustments needed to have a different outcome.
Hmm.
You know, I tell people all the time that we have first responders, not first reactors,
That's good. That's good.
because a lot of us we react in certain situations, but we realize that sometimes our reactions aren't serving us. So we
Hmm.
want to say, okay, I would like to have a different outcome. So that means I have to have a response.
Hmm.
So when something comes up, I know how to respond. And I will admit it does take time for us to, for lack of a better term, reprogram ourselves
You
to
know, I
have
agree
those.
with that. I
Hmm.
agree with that. And I'll also add to that, you know, everybody in our life is a reflection or a mirror of where we at because everything ends and begins within. So
Hmm.
even in the relationships, because as we continue to grow and learn and reprogram ourselves, we should be continually becoming not a different person, but an evolved person.
Right.
So if I see a cycle in my life where it's a repeated pattern,
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, what in me is attracting that? Or what in me is
Right.
allowing that? Or what in me is tolerating that?
Right.
And
Right.
then once I address that, because so in my program, Michelle Speaks is built off of three pillars:
Okay.
identifying the barriers to healing,
Mm.
um, to emotional healing, ending the shame of silence by cleansing false belief systems, because everything is based on a belief system.
Right, right,
And then setting and sustaining healthy boundaries by that's how we restore our voice, because often boundaries are blurred before we even realize that we can have boundaries. At least I'll speak for myself. That was the case with me growing up.
right,
And
right,
so I've just learned, instead of blaming the other person, okay, Michelle, what in you is being exposed, that's hidden, that's broken, that needs to be fixed, or needs to be addressed. I'm not going to say fixed. That needs to be
right,
addressed,
right.
because
Yeah,
life is about growing, it's about evolving, it's about learning different aspects of who you are. You
right.
know, to look at
Definitely,
to look at
yeah.
me, people
Hmm.
wouldn't think, hey, I've hung off the side of a mountain at 18,000 feet, roped in to with 10 other people, or I did a 24-hour maxi climber challenge with only a 10-minute break at the top of every hour for 24 hours to raise funds. I just like doing extreme things, but I wouldn't have learned that about myself had I not experienced the depth of the pain and the betrayal, because I learned that resilience within me, it was a
Hmm.
mental resilience, that no matter how far low I get, something within me won't let me stop even when I feel like I'm at my lowest. And I say the same about you, Dr. Saccone. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've got some stories you could share with us.
Yes, I do, and I definitely try to have my podcast, for my guests, to be able to speak. But you are spot on. I tell people all the time. I said I have a major problem with consistency,
Hmm.
and my problem is I'm too consistent. I mean, I'm too consistent. It's almost as if God Himself has to tell me, "Okay, all right, stop, just stop."
Hmm.
Okay, but that level of commitment is what drives consistency.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've shared this before, and I'll make it quick. Consistency wouldn't exist without commitment. So you
Well,
need commitment first to have consistency. But after you are consistent over time, you become successful.
that's
There's no
true.
way. There's no way you can keep doing something over and over and over again and not get better at it if you are consistent at it.
True.
But
True.
but success over time leaves a legacy.
Hmm.
And the two
But
primary. Go
I'm
ahead. Go
sorry.
ahead. No, no, go ahead.
Consistency and commitment can only be sustained in community, because we can't be an island unto ourselves.
Ooh, let's see. You don't open up something. Yes, you are absolutely right. You're
Hmm.
absolutely right because I don't care how committed you are, your consistency is not just about yourself, but you're
Hmm.
showing up. You're showing up for someone. Yes,
For
yes, of course,
others.
yeah. Yeah, in fact, we're showing up for
Oh.
ourselves, but we're also showing up for others. And
Hmm.
I was going to say that my two examples that I use for that is Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan. They were both
Okay.
committed to their craft. They were committed. They had
They were.
commitment. But that commitment led to their consistency. Even after Michael
Hmm.
Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, I wonder if that coach ever just hid his face because he cut one of the greatest basketball players in history. But his commitment is what allowed him to keep being consistent.
Right, right.
And of course,
And even in that commitment and consistent, he had a community of support. He had
that
roots that were
yes,
helping him stay
yes,
committed and
yes,
consistent.
yes, yes.
Community, being accountable to someone other than ourselves,
Hmm.
we need that,
Yeah, yeah, we do. We
because when
definitely
we
need to
get
try.
weak, they may be strong in an area that we're weak in.
Yeah.
It says iron sharpens iron. Like, I may be calling on you, Dr. Saccone, at the upcoming
Okay.
event in March. Be like, hey, I'm not feeling this. Hey, I need some of your strength. And we just have to get to a place where we're vulnerable like that. Transparency, vulnerability, accountability, and
Yeah.
authenticity are the four
Yeah.
pillars to success, to sustain success, I believe,
Yeah.
whatever your definition of success is, whatever
Right.
you want to achieve in life.
Right. Right. That is so true. That's so, so true. And listen, our third question says, how can someone begin to recognize the difference between reacting from their inner child and responding as their mature adult self?
Hmm. So I would say to that, the inner child reacts to the world like the world, what is happening in the world is happening to her. The
Okay.
mature adult responds like she has the authority within herself to respond to the things that are happening. Um, and I would say how I learned the difference in that is my inner child was loud, fast, and absolute. There was no black and there was no gray. It was black or it was white.
Off our
I
own,
can't
huh?
I can't trust anybody.
Mm,
They're gonna leave. I have to fix this right now. And if
right.
I don't respond, I'm unsafe. That was
Mm,
my inner child. That was
right.
my immature child. The
Right.
adult, I pause. I check the facts, trust but verify.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
listen. I don't respond out of reaction.
Right. Right.
I listen to hear what's not being said. I love anybody that knows me. When we communicate, don't
Mm-hmm.
text me, call me.
Yeah.
I want to
See,
hear your
see,
voice.
right there.
I want to hear your voice. I want to see your face.
Right.
Um, I don't make permanent decisions anymore based on temporary situations or temporary emotions. Now,
Mm-hmm.
most women are emotional, and I do have an emotional side, but there's also another side of me um, where I can just shut down and be completely unemotional, just straight analytical, factual. Um, and people are like, "Who are you? And where's Michelle?" Like that's when Michelle is exited and Mickey has entered the room. So everybody's always telling me, leave Mickey right where she's at. Don't
Oh,
bring her in this place.
okay. Okay.
So, I remember a time, Dr. Saccone, when someone said something to me. They hit they say hit dogs holler.
Right. Right.
So they hit a trigger,
Mm-hmm.
and my body wanted to do what it always did. I wanted to lash out or
Mm,
shut down. And the
wow.
last time I got triggered really bad, this was years ago, and I lashed out, it ended up in someone having to be hospitalized, and it scared me. And that's when I realized I have to do a paradigm shift.
Mm,
But
yeah.
then I heard this voice, and I anchored back to that in that moment. I heard this voice inside me say to stop, pause, breathe, because this is not about what's going on right now. This is
Mm,
about what happened
right.
in that space.
Right.
And that changed me because I anchored back to that moment when I was some years ago. I'm not going to say how many years young I am now as of last week, but
Yeah. All
some
right.
years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go back to a space and you feel like you're totally reactive, that's your inner child.
Yeah.
That's not a mature adult.
You are living in a memory
Hmm.
at that
Hmm.
moment. And if you don't
Hmm.
recognize that, you will respond as that inner child. I had a guest on my podcast a couple of months ago, and she said something to me that was so insightful. I've been sharing it over and over again because I asked her, in fact, the same question. And see, the question is kind of worded where it's like either one or the other. You are reacting as your inner child, or you respond as your mature adult self. And she said something to me that was so insightful. She said, "Well, instead of it being one or the other, it's really both." She said,
Hmm.
"She said, like what she does is she checks and sees what her inner child needs, but
Hmm.
then she responds as her mature adult self.
I love that.
So if her inner child doesn't feel safe, instead of her just cutting and running, she will she will in a mature adult way excuse herself. If her
Hmm.
inner child needs to be stood up for or if she needs to speak up for herself, instead of her screaming, yelling, or instead of throwing an actual tantrum as her inner child, her mature adult self said, "Okay, I got this," and she will, in a calm and decisive way, respond on behalf of that inner, because our emotions are what's triggered at first.
Right.
That's our initial, but then we have to practice our response. And
Exactly.
even as I hinted to earlier, there comes a time where you have to reprogram yourself. And I had to
Hmm.
start processing, especially in fact with the therapy I've gone through. I had to
Hmm.
realize I couldn't just have the same reaction. So it
Hmm.
took a moment for me to reprogram myself. And so I found myself in situations I was stopping, and kind of like you, I was I was saying, okay, I normally would react this way, but I want to respond this way. And so I had to make that shift. And that's intentional. It doesn't happen, without your dedicated willingness to get a different result. Because
Right.
otherwise, you're just going to keep doing the same thing and get the same outcome.
Well, I will say this with anybody that's experienced trauma, we've
Hmm.
learned to suppress emotions, and emotions were meant to be expressed, not suppressed. God has given us a full range of emotions.
Right.
The key is learning to master those emotions, because if we
Mm.
don't master them, then they're going to manage us. Um,
That's true. That's true.
so,
That's
learning
true.
to allow ourselves the grace to experience the emotions
Right. So,
and to process it. Yeah.
in fact, we have a comment here from this is Let's Talk Under the Tree podcast 2021. Say hello, Mickey.
Now leave Mickey where Mickey is at. Hello, let's talk under the tree podcast. Pastor Palmer. Hello, hello. He's in the house.
He's in the house. Amen. Amen. All right. So listen, our next question says, in your experience, what roles does forgiveness of self and others play in the healing and maturing process?
Forgiveness is a necessity. Um, Forgiveness is not, it's not just a cliche, and it's really not for the other person. It's a release valve for you.
Right.
Um, and I just spoke on forgiveness the other day, so that's wow. Forgiveness, especially self forgiveness, is deep work, because often what we don't want to address, it's easier for us to forgive others, but it's so difficult at times for us to forgive ourselves. This
Yeah.
is the differentiating factor. Forgiveness is necessary to be able to release yourself from the prison that you've allowed another person to put you in, keeping them hostage.
Mm.
That's the forgiveness and the self forgiveness. But forgiveness does not mean reaccess for that person. If you
Mm.
want to salvage the relationship, the friendship, then there are conditions. You don't throw people away, but you reposition them based on how they respond. Because you can forgive somebody, but it doesn't mean that you have to give them access to you again.
Yeah. That's true.
Access is earned only if they, one, if they admit or own what they've done to betray the trust or
Hmm.
to cause the breach, and only if they want to reconcile. People think forgiveness is okay, I forgive you, you have the same access that you had before. We're just gonna not talk about this and see how we can, get to the root of why this happened like this and why I felt like that. No. And what I've learned is that I no longer throw people away. I just reposition them in my life.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I remember, for me, when I had the hardest thing I had to forgive was myself, even with all the things that I had forgiven other people for. And it was easy to forgive them because I asked God, reduce me to love. I don't want to just forgive them. I want to love them like they never hurt me.
Mm.
But I wasn't able to love myself because I was carrying the anger around, and I used that like an armor. It was a shield of protection, and it
Right.
protected me for a while. But that armor, that anger, even though it kept me from collapsing, it kept me from being fulfilled. I was carrying a weight that was not a weight that I was supposed to carry. And
Right.
I was paying the price. I was paying
Right.
the price in relationships and in business, in every aspect of my life, my mental health,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
wasn't forgiving myself. Because it was like, how did you let that happen? How did you not see that?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did you let them talk to you like that? How did you allow them to keep using you? Why do you keep forgiving? Because I had not forgiven myself. And because
Mm.
I felt like forgiving them meant that they had to still have access to me. It's not. Reconciliation of something that was done will only come when truth is told, because that's when the trust can be rebuilt.
Right.
If they're in
That's it.
denial or they refuse to deny what they did, but that's the relationship with ourselves too, because the first relationship we have outside of our relationship with God is with ourselves.
Yeah.
So what haven't you forgiven yourself for? How can you forgive somebody else and not forgive you, because you're worthy of it?
Yeah. That's so so true. And I live by that scripture that says that we are to in fact love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And so many of us we run past that. We read it so quickly and we just keep moving. But I mean, there's a lot of truth in that
Mm-hmm.
because if you can't love yourself, it's really challenging for you to try to love anybody else. And if you find yourself having a hard time loving other people, I would say take a step back and see how much you love yourself. And even as you mentioned, forgiving yourself,
Mm-hmm.
understand. And I mean, literally saying it out loud. I had, in fact, one guest on here. Actually, in fact, I've actually had on twice. But the first time she was on, she talked about that her therapist actually had to write a letter to her mother, and her
Mm-hmm.
mother had been dead for like 10 years, and she said that was the hardest thing for me to do. It took her like months, before she could actually sit down and write the letter.
Mm-hmm.
And even in my book, I have a process where I call write it, read it, and release it. And
Mm-hmm.
I know, women don't have a problem with journaling. Y'all have diaries and stuff ever since y'all were younger. But most men, it's like we don't want our thoughts, especially those things that are truly weighing on us. But we don't want them recorded or put anywhere for somebody to stumble upon. So I even talk about if you have a fire pit, if you have a barbecue pit, fellas, you can write it down,
And
go
burn
out,
it out.
read it, and burn it up. And
Mm-hmm.
again, write it, read it, and release it. And that way,
Mm-hmm.
it's a process of getting that stuff out, forgiving those individuals, and even forgiving ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's so critically important because, like you said, without that forgiveness, it's really hard for us to navigate and to have those type of healthy, happy, and whole relationships that we
Right.
can have if we don't do that.
Right. If you don't forgive yourself, then I would question whether or not you really love yourself.
Ooh,
Because how are you loving you? Loving you is understanding that you have value. Loving you is understanding that your boundaries are valid and they matter. Loving you is that you can speak up and lovingly tell someone when they've crossed your boundaries or when they've hurt you, and be vulnerable enough to be able to express that, not out of anger, but just, hey, you said this. I'm not sure what you meant by that, but it hurt my feelings. I don't
right.
know if that's what you intended, but when we stop, maturity is not letting your pain become your identity.
Mm, yeah, that's ooh,
Pain teaches us, but it
yeah,
paralyzes us if we allow it to become our identity. And
that's
that's what I teach, in that my identity restoration in one of the courses that I have.
true.
Hmm.
Normally I would say that people and my guests are dropping nuggets, but since you've climbed mountains, you're dropping boulders. so,
What you say?
so it's not just nuggets, it's boulders of
So I'm
information.
dropping boulders.
All right, our next question here says, what practical daily habits or practices help nurture both healing the inner child and strengthening the inner adult?
So I will say this, and I say this a lot: healing is a journey. It is not a destination that you arrive at. And
Okay.
every day is different. And so, one of the things that I've incorporated, and I knew that I needed this, I know I need quiet time in the morning. I know I need at least 10 to 15 minutes of no interaction with anybody, no phones, no noise. And I take that time. I love music, like instrumentals, like soothing music.
Mm-hmm.
And I listen to that. And, I spend my time, praying and listening to the downloads and reading the word to see what God wants to speak to me about. But I
Mm-hmm.
also start the day with, I know I need to move my body because, we got to keep these temples together. So I start with a morning prayer, then reading a devotional, and then I do 10 to 15, sometimes 45 minutes of stretching, releasing things from the body because the body holds trauma.
Yeah.
So
The body keeps the score.
there you go. So releasing those things from my body, and then affirmations. Um, because there's power of life and death in the tongue, and we'll eat the fruit thereof. So what we speak is what we're going to attract. And so I'm very mindful about what I allow to go in first thing when I wake up, because that's how I nurture my healing child, my inner child. And one of the things I do is I do a checkup. What am I feeling this morning?
Mm.
What do I need today?
Right.
What am I avoiding? And what boundary, if there's a boundary, have I dishonored or allowed to be dishonored?
Mm.
That's the emotional. Then the physical, I get up and I drink water and I eat to fuel my body. Like I don't eat for comfort, because when I was little, I ate for um, out of comfort. So I
Mm-hmm.
would eat things to make me feel good. I would eat to hide my body because, one of the things that was done was I was molested, so I didn't want to look attractive. And
Mm-hmm.
so I eat to fuel my body. I eat the things that make my body feel good. So I eat lots of protein, lots of greens, very little carbs because they just make me feel sluggish. So I rest without apologizing. Like I used to feel like I have to go, go, go. I have to achieve. I have to produce. I have to do
Right.
this. And I was like, rest was like, to me, it was bad. Like, no, you're
Mm.
lazy. No, now I rest.
Right. Right.
I'll
Right.
spend a whole day. If I feel like I need to, I'm not going to do anything. I move my body to release the stress. And so, of course, as a woman, I journal.
Okay.
But the
All
first
right.
thing that I do, that I pray and I honor my boundaries.
Mm.
I, that is the thing. I honor my boundaries. If somebody's crossed my boundary, loud does not mean strength. Like I don't have to get loud with you.
Right.
Often I'll get silent. If you do something, I'll get silent or I'll go silent or I'll just pause for a minute. And then they'll be like, "What?" And I'll say, "Hey, I didn't really care for that. Or did you mean to be that flippant with me like that? Because I don't know what's going on, but I didn't do it." And I know I'm not perfect. Like I'll do something because I'm reactive because of something else that happened, but I immediately, "I'm so sorry, that was not you.
Right.
I
Right.
had this going on." But one of the affirmations that I do, I'll share it with you real quick. So I get up in the morning, I look in the mirror.
Mm.
I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I express love openly with no mask.
Mm.
I will move in love today. I am powerful beyond measure. I'm strong in mind, body, and spirit. I am content no matter what the day brings. I am grateful for my life, no matter what it looks like. I am equipped to love the unlovable. I choose daily to walk in forgiveness of self and others. And if someone comes to mind, I choose daily to forgive whatever their name is. I
Mm.
create environments. I won't succumb to them. I embrace my uniqueness. I will not water it down. And those things heal the inner child, and those things heal the triggers when they come up. Or I do
Right.
something that um, makes me feel good. That is the inner adult protecting the inner child. And I've learned to love people where they are, but put them where they belong. I can love you and still choose distance. That
Right.
used to kill me. That used to hurt me. That used to crush me.
Mm.
I, and I'm ashamed to say, even a couple of years ago, it would crush me to have to
Right.
put distance between somebody to protect and honor my boundaries. But I can love you and still keep distance.
Right.
I'll check in on you, but you no longer have inner access because there's three categories: outer court, inner court, holies of holies.
Okay. All right. Where are you standing?
Where are you today?
That's it. That's it. Hey, listen, Faye, we're going to take a quick break and actually hear from some of our sponsors, and then we're going to come back and, in fact, wrap up these last two questions. But this is from my coach, Dr. Ruben West. He does a trip to Nairobi, Kenya every year, and I am so excited to actually be with the possibility of me going back this year. So check this out.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I want to thank my coach, Dr. Ruben West. Again, he does a monumental job putting on those events, and I was grateful to actually be a part of it back in 2023. And when we closed out the show, my scissor reel was actually it was edited and shot in Africa. And
Okay.
again, that's just amazing. But I also want to share another good friend of mine. She has a trilogy of books, and this is none other than Dr. LaDonya Yvette.
Every soul has a journey, a path waiting to unfold, and a destiny designed just for you. In infinity, the journey to becoming, you'll awaken to your own beginning. In eternity, the path unfolding, you'll find strength in every step forward. And in serendipity, the destiny of you, you'll embrace the beauty of who you were created to be. These are not just books, they are guides, companions for your heart and spirit. Your journey is calling. Answer it today. Purchase the trilogy now, available on Amazon.
And again, we want to thank our sponsor, Dr. LaDonya Yvette, for her trilogy of books. So listen, we have two other questions, and then we're going to ask, how can somebody follow you? But question number 6 says, can you share a personal breakthrough moment when you realized that you were no longer
Mm.
controlled by past wounds, but guided by maturity?
Whew.
Just pick one. I know you have several, but just pick one.
No, I said woo because that was tough. It was tough to even address that. But honestly, one of my clearest breakthrough moments was when the first time that I was able to walk away without needing them to understand.
Mm,
Um, and I say that because there was a time in my life when I absolutely needed closure. I had to have closure. I needed it to be able to move forward. I needed for people to admit what they did and they were wrong. It would burn me up. I needed that apology. I needed that acknowledgement. I needed them to see me because I felt like they didn't see me. Um, but then one day I realized some people will never confess. They will never own up to what they did. They will never apologize for it. And if my freedom depended on that, on
mm,
their honesty, then I was still chained. I was still bound. It was still a stronghold.
right.
They were living and I was choking.
Mm,
So
right. Right.
I had the opportunity to re engage in an old dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And the old me, I would have gone back, I would have engaged, I would have reopened and given them access to prove that I was worthy, to prove that I was healed, to
Right.
prove that, I was strong. But the mature me said this: I'm not going to go back and open a door that God has closed.
Mm.
Doesn't mean I have to be nasty.
Right.
And then I walked away. Like I didn't, when I say walk away, like I didn't, just disappear off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
But I stopped being so available. I stopped reaching out as much. I stopped checking in as much, because why? People make time for who and
That's
what they
true.
want to make time for. So why am I working so hard when it's not reciprocal? What am I still trying to prove? So when I was able to walk away and feel whole and be okay, then I knew that that was my breakthrough.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Yes, that was. I, I see where you had a deep breath.
Yeah.
Before you answer that, I can definitely understand that, and
Right. Because
and
that
I
was
mean,
huge.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and it is, and how many other people have that testimony?
Hmm.
How many other people can say that they can do that? So again, my hat's off to you. All right, last question. What encouragement would you give to someone who feels stuck in old patterns and unsure if real healing is possible for them?
So, first, I would tell them that healing is messy.
Yep,
So, even if
yep.
you don't feel like you're healing, you're healing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're not crazy. You're
Okay.
not weak. You're not broken.
Mm,
You are just breaking patterns and cycles, but you are not broken.
mm,
You're breaking behaviors and habits and traditions and environment and culture and upbringing. But
right.
patterns can be rewritten.
Mm-hmm.
You determine what you want to look like now that you've come out of that fire. You determine what your relationships are going to look like, what your finances are going to look like, what you are evolving to. People may think that they know you, like they've got you in a box, but you can
Yeah.
come out of the box. And if
Right.
you're stuck, it doesn't mean that you're failing. It means that that's just a place that you need to take an extra pause
Mm,
and look within and be like, well, why am I stuck right here?
right.
Everything begins and ends in the mind. The battlefield begins in the mind. I'm not sure. I'm sure you've read that book by Joyce Myers, The Battlefield of the Mind.
Right.
But everything is mindset. It's a belief system. What belief systems are no longer serving you because you're growing beyond that? It talks about you can't pour new wine into old
No, I
wines.
understand. Right.
That pain taught you something. Don't allow that pain to be your identity. And if you need to stay there a little bit longer, it doesn't mean that you have failed. It
Mm,
means that you have to dig a little bit deeper to heal
mm,
that wound that's become embedded within your soul. Because our spirits are whole, but our souls are wounded. And it
yeah.
takes time, it takes a little bit longer to heal some soul wounds than it does others. So just take the time. Know that healing is possible, but it's a journey. It's not a destination. Some of us are so driven. Okay, we want to fix this right here. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Fix
Right.
this.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to. But sometimes you got to go back and revisit, because there's layers. Just like there's layers to recovery and addiction,
Right.
there's layers to healing. And once you peel back that one layer and it's healed,
Mm,
sometimes you just got to go back and make sure. So,
yeah. I had actually created a banner for my Facebook page, and I
mhm,
and I actually wrote on it. It said, "How are you?" And then I scratched through the word "feeling" today, and I wrote "healing" over top of it. So
I
instead of
love it.
saying how are you feeling today, is how are
Mhm,
you healing today?
mhm,
And like you said, it is a process. It is a journey. but it's one that's worth taking because, quite frankly, uh, we benefit the most. I mean, yes, indirectly, those who love us, those who interact with us, they, well, in fact, they get the benefits of our healing indirectly, but we benefit the most
Right.
from our own healing, and we allow ourselves to have a life it's honestly worth living. And so, with
Yeah.
that being said,
And stop. We want to try to do everything all at once. Start small.
yep,
Tell yourself one truth.
yep,
Honor one boundary.
yep,
Choose one healthy decision. Ask for help one
yeah,
time. And
yes.
stop going back to what keeps breaking you because you can't heal in the environment where you've been hurt.
See, you okay? All right. I'm gonna, I'm gonna have you back. I don't know when, but I'm gonna have you back because again, not nuggets, boulders. Next time, I'm wearing the hard hat and some steel
What you
toe
say?
and
I'm
some
sorry, you
steel
don't need to wear the hard hat. No.
hard hat and some steel toes. But the
We
information that
walking
you
through it together, but we walking. That's the thing.
exactly. Well, you've definitely, I know, encouraged me, and I know those who are tuned in, and those who are going to be listening to the replay on iHeartRadio and Spotify are definitely going to get a a wealth of knowledge and information. Again, so tell people how they can get in contact with you, follow you, keep up with you.
Okay.
How
Well,
they
if
do
you
that?
want to connect with me and find out more about who this chick Michelle Speaks is, all my social media handles, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube,
Mm,
LinkedIn, is Michelle Speaks, MichhelleSpeakz. And if you want to learn more about what I do, go to my website, michellespeakswithaz.com. I do some other stuff too. I have a publishing company, Scroll and Soar Publishing. My ministry arm is Holder Ministries. I help to refresh the weary
mm,
and rebuild the broken, those that are called to different mantles of ministry. But in a
wow.
nutshell, if you just want to hang out and find out more about me, follow me. If you want to reach out and connect, book a session or just hit me up in my DMs and say, hey, I saw you on the H.E.A.L podcast. I want to learn more about you.
Mm,
And just know this: life is to be learned, but it's also to be loved. And have fun on your healing journey. It doesn't have to be all dreary. You're going to have those days. Have fun, explore new possibilities, find out some things that you might not know about yourself that you like to do.
yeah.
Come
I
join me
always
on the side of a mountain. I'll be hiking the Grand Canyon in April, so come join me.
okay. I will look for the pictures.
You need to join me, sir.
Yeah, okay. And on that note, we're going to end our podcast. But we oftentimes end with our scissor reel. And so, listen, until next time, we will see you in the next podcast. Well, my name is Saccone Prince of SacconePrince.com, where we make motivation personal by introducing you to yourself. I'm a motivational speaker, a trainer, and a coach. I'm also an author. I help people in the area of personal development and leadership development because I believe that you can't lead others until you learn how to lead yourself. But once you learn how to lead yourself, the next logical step is that you lead other people.
Saccone Prince is the best keynote I've ever seen.
He really encouraged me so much.
He has this ability of seeing in people what they don't see in themselves.
He was so confident. When he was coming to the stage, you could see like, wow, this is a lion.
Any actor that's going for a role, they do a case study. If I'm going to be a fry cook, I go to a restaurant and watch people that are fry cooks. If I'm going to be a mob boss, I go and, well, maybe not go to with a mob, but you take some notes as to what they do. Our children are watching us. What can they reference when they step into our shoes? I do what I do because I believe that people have truly yet to understand their purpose. Once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. But until you know who you are, anything can. So my goal is to really help people to understand their purpose and their calling. And oftentimes they have the answers themselves, but they're not asking the right questions. So I help people to get to that place to where they look at themselves, they step back and they see how they've been a help to those around them and what really drives them. And from that, they really understand the value of it. They learn to value their value and see what value their value brings. Because a lot of people, they have yet to do that. Until you know who you are, anything can stop you. But once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. I want you to understand that you are blessed. That you are blessed to be a blessing. That there is somebody looking up to you. They're looking at you. Don't ever forget that. Because if you ever do, you're going to leave them without a mind.
I've learned so much, and I've experienced a lot of interactions with people.
The practical approach, like you can't just sit down there, you have to walk up to an opportunity. Sometimes you have to grab the opportunity. Sometimes you have to fight for the opportunity. There's so much life lessons.
I think from today onwards, I'll stretch out and reach to higher levels.